Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of the Money Mondays podcast, where we cover 3 core topics: how to make money, how to invest money, how to give it away to charity. On this edition, out of almost 200 episodes, I typically record inside of an RV motorhome that I travel around the country. On this episode, we're going to keep it to under 40 minutes because podcasts are typically listened to while people are commuting to work, which takes 45 minutes, or while they're at the gym. The average workout is 45 minutes. So this episode will be under 40 minutes for your listening pleasure. Now keep in mind, I bring on rappers, football players, real estate, all different types of categories. So the topic that we're going through today might not just be for you. It might be someone in your life from your past, present, or future. So as you're listening to these podcasts, don't just consume for yourself. Think about the people that you meet that you might bring up topics of the things that you hear about today. Now, Tai, if you could, give a quick 2-minute bio so we can get straight to the money.
2-minute bio of me. It was dark, and suddenly there was light, and I was born. No, that's I think that's how Dwight Schrute in The Office described his life. I was born here in LA, born in Long Beach, the poor part of LA, and I graduated high school not with too much money. But apparently I had written a letter, one of my mom's friends, when I was 16, saying, one day I'm going to be a millionaire. So I had money on my mind, but I didn't know what to do about it. And I grew up without my dad, who was in prison. So what changed my life was finding father figures that knew about making money. I found my first father figure, mentor, Joel Salatin, when I was 19. And I went, instead of going to college, I just went and worked on his farm for about 18 months and lived in the backyard, paid me $300 a month, and I got to work 12 hours a day on a farm, but it taught me hard work. And then I found 5 mentors after total that were millionaires, and that really changed my life. And 2009, I started building my personal brand. Now I have 12 million followers across different platforms, and I've become known for different things, but one of them is for marketing and how to monetize social media. So I always encourage people, ask ChatGPT to say, what am I one of the best in the world at? So ChatGPT says I'm number 1 in the world at doing paid social media ads, which I thought was interesting. It says I'm number 2 at building funnels, and Russell Brunson's number 1. So I texted Russell Brunson the other day and I said, you got me beat on this one. And he wrote me back. But then I sent him the one on paid ads. It said, you're like number 6 and I'm number 1. But the real one that I think is the coolest one, if I had to tell my grandkids, it's not so much about marketing. ChatGPT says in modern history, I've gotten the most people to read nonfiction books. It ranks me as number 1, Oprah Winfrey as number 2. So maybe that's a cool badge of honor. If on my tombstone it says he got a lot of people to read important books, because one book can change the world. You know, the pen's mightier than the sword. So that's maybe what I'm most proud about of myself.
So the video, the most famous one, Here in My Garage, has over 1 billion minutes watched. I think it's like 1.4, 1.5 billion minutes watched. Talk us through how that became a thing, and then how did you scale it to become one of the most watched things in history of social media?
Yeah, my YouTube just passed I forget, over 2 billion minutes watched, maybe 3, but a lot. And I think the principle that I learned early, even from Joel Salatin, the farmer, was you got to take a risk. If you want to become well-known, risky marketing wins. And so, I knew from past experience, if I posted a video with me in a Lamborghini, nothing will bring out the envy, hatred, and admiration of other men than you posting money. Just get ready for it. Anybody who's listening, if you haven't made money, when you do, people are going to come out of the woodwork to love you and to hate you the same day. So I was like, let me take a risk. I had got a Lamborghini people thought I got that Lamborghini. There was a whole scandal that I had bought a Lamborghini just for that video. The truth is, I got my first Italian car in 2006. That video came out in 2014. I had Ferraris and all that for years, but I never put them on camera. So I just said, let me take a risk. I know throwing it's actually funny. I was at Sushiya, the restaurant, we've gone there a lot, on Sunset Boulevard, and I'm a student of psychology, and I was sitting there, and the owners of Sushia have always been geniuses. They hire the most beautiful actresses to be their waitresses, because a lot of up-and-coming actresses, you know, they go on auditions during the day, but they work at night, so he'd hire them. And I'd always bring my friends to Sushia, and every single guy, I would watch them. Whenever a waitress came, men's eyes, if you're trying to talk to your buddy, they're just following the woman, ignoring you. But one day, I heard this loud car go by, and at the same time, a beautiful woman, and 5 guys I was with, none of them watched the woman, they all watched the Lamborghini. And I go, oh, this is how men are easy to understand. It's like men paying attention to another man, low on the totem pole. Beautiful woman walks by, they forget about looking at their friends, they look at the woman. But loud Lamborghini trumps all. So that's why I decided, let's see if this works at scale in an ad. And it worked like I always tell people, one good ad, one good funnel can make you 100 million. That funnel's done, I'm sure, at least 100 million if you look at all the upsells and stuff. So $67 program can do 100 mil. So that's kind of the background. Watch people's eyes and you can learn how to do marketing.
So when we cover these 3 core topics about making money, investing money, give it away to charity, let's talk about the making money side. What do you think holds people back mentally from going out there and making money? Why do you think they're plateaued at 40 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand a year, where they just are complacent and they don't want to make more?
Yeah, that's a good question. I call it the tyranny of our ancestors. Every single person here has generational curses and generational blessings, you know? It's like the Bible says in the Old Testament, I will curse the children and the children's children, right? So you have these generational curses. I grew up, my dad is from Harlem, New York, very poor on my dad's side. He was born in Spanish Harlem, and so my dad learned how to make money by selling cocaine. He went to prison in Terminal Island for 7 years. Back then it was like the rise of, mafia, organized crime. He got involved in that because there was nobody showing you. You don't rise above what people show you. If you want to learn, you can't learn Chinese on your own, right? You can't really learn Chinese from a book. You learn Chinese by either going to China in immersion with a whole bunch of Chinese people or getting a teacher that sits there and talks to you for hours a day. My dad didn't have money taught to him, except if you sell this white powder, this was in the Scarface days, you can make a lot of money. So he was under the tyranny of his ancestors, not knowing how to make legitimate money. My mom divorced him when he was in prison so that I wouldn't grow up around him. So I didn't have the tyranny of learning to sell drugs through cocaine. Make money through cocaine. I just had nothing. So by the time it's funny, I know had no money because I found an old video where my grandma was visiting and I was in high school. And I went up to my grandma on the side, kind of off, but you can hear it on the camera. And I'm like, Grandma, is there any way I can have $20? I need something. So, I don't think I had $20 till I was, 17 or 18. And so the only way to break the generational curses around money is you got to switch families temporarily. You got to build a new family of people who aren't related to you. You have to go out and find a father figure or a woman figure, and humans learn through shadowing. So I think because 99% of people, if we look out the window, Sunset Boulevard, people driving by, what percentage of people are shadowing somebody who's rich? What percentage of people, what do you guess? If 1,000 cars went by in the last 10 minutes, what do you think the amount of people there that grew up poor, that have rebuilt father figure who knows how to make money, that they follow around 20 hours a week? What's your guess? 1%? 1% max. Well, 1% of the world has all the money. So if you're born without the ability to see other people making real money. You're cursed. The good news is you can break the curse. Just make a new family, at least temporarily. I went and lived with Joel Salatin. New family, new way of life. It was hard for me, to be around people like that. So go find someone rich who lives in your town. You want to learn to do a restaurant? Find the richest restaurateur in your little town and say, hey, every Saturday I'll get you donuts, I'll get you coffee. I just want to see how you walk, how you talk, how you hold yourself confident, how you deal with a weird employee, how you deal with conflict. What do you do when you get a lawsuit? How do you hold your shoulder? Like I learned from Joel Salatin how to talk in conflict. Joel Salatin's like a strong man, but he's not so strong that, like my dad, I didn't learn how to deal with aggression because my dad's an OG dude. He has like fucking knife wounds, blind in one eye. My dad, so I didn't learn how to deal with conflict from my father because he was violent. Whereas Joel Salatin, I learned the perfect blend, like stand up for yourself, but don't stab a guy in the face, right? So every aspect of making money, from negotiations to how to deal with a lawsuit, to how to deal with an employee that steals from you, to how to come up with a creative idea, how to get the idea out, how to raise capital, all that, you need to model it off somebody else. So that you reprogram. If you didn't grow up with good programming, you got to deprogram, and then re-upload new stuff.
So nowadays, making money is easier than ever. We have mobile apps, phones, ways to get a hold of people through social media. You can market for free. There's so many ways to get out customer service, a new business, a new idea, and to what I call set up shop. Your LLC, your website, your mobile app, you can build everything for free or cheap. Similar question, when we have all those tools, because back in our days, we didn't have cell phones. Back in our days, we didn't have a smartphone. What about now? When people have all these tools, what do you think holds them back from just moving forward and starting?
I mean, most fear is a big one. I just had Roy from Cluely here, and 3 months ago, he started a company that's valued at 120 million. He made 100 million in 3 months. That was impossible in history. If you study history, he's 21. Name one 21-year-old that ever had 100 million net worth that wasn't royalty in past history or inherited money. It's never happened. It's only now. So it's such a unique time. So I understand why most people don't jump on that, because I have this thing, it's called the grandfather rule. Most people won't buy or do anything that they didn't hear their grandfather or father tell them or see their grandfather buy. For example, super easy to convince people to buy a vacuum cleaner. If I had a vacuum cleaner, Tai's vacuum cleaners, this shit's easy to market. I don't have to convince anybody in here that you should have a vacuum cleaner. I just have to convince you mine's the best one. Why? Because you saw your grandparents vacuum and you saw your dad vacuum. So they call that a mind map. It's already established. So old things are easy to sell. That's why that's why people still sending their kids to college and getting in debt, because people saw their parents and grandparents going to college. Well, it's probably not the right choice for most people anymore, unless you want to be a medical doctor or a lawyer. But most people are going to keep sending their kids to college because they saw their dad and their grandpa send their kids to college. So it takes a rare human to be innovative and unconventional. And that really takes courage, so you will pretty much rise to your level of courage. I meet people. There was a guy that was on the phone with there's a guy here, one of my private clients. One of my former students, pretty cool. I just recorded a video a minute ago. I think he's still out there talking. He was a Pizza Hut driver in 2016 when he was 20. He's been sitting in the back, and he got in my SMMA program and made $20,000 in the first 3 days. He got 3 clients that paid him $7,000 to do marketing. I taught him how to do it, right? Then he got in my real estate wholesaling course, and that was in 2016. Now he's worth $20 million. He's 29 years old. He's got Section 8 real estate that pays him $2.5 million a year net, basically passive income. Plus he makes 10 million from his funding business. So he's on track to be worth, 50 to 100 million in his early 30s. He just had more courage than most people. Part of that was being at the bottom. When you're working at Pizza Hut, it doesn't take quite as much courage, right? Because you're already at the bottom. Jeff Bezos, he did a crazy thing. Like, he had courage because he was making the equivalent of about $1 million a year as an investment banker. And he dropped it all because he said, I live by the regret minimizing framework. Whenever you have a decision, take the one that's the most likely to minimize your old man regrets. When you're old, he said, when I'm old, if I don't try this internet thing in 1994, I'll go, what if I had quit my $1 million job and made 10 million? Well, he turned out to make a $1 trillion company called Amazon. So I think you increase your courage by playing mind games with yourself and thinking regret minimization. Will I regret not doing this? And I think everybody right now, if you're not building a social media brand, 10 years from now, you're going to be like, fuck, I could have built it before there was too many AI fake Instagram profiles. I had a chance and I didn't do it. You could be like, oh man, AI was the new gold rush. I missed crypto in 2011. A guy just sold his crypto wallet. I don't know if y'all saw last week for $9.6 billion. He exited his wallet. He had put 56,000 in 2011. That took courage. How many people in 2011 were signing Bitcoin? But that guy goes, you know what? What if Bitcoin really goes up and I'll always regret it? So let me put 50 G's in. So it's courage. How is courage created? By thinking not about what you could lose, but how much you'll regret not trying.
So let's do a real life scenario. There's very few products or markets that haven't been monopolized. What you brought up was vacuums. There's no direct-to-consumer vacuum brand. Right. There's just the famous ones that we know, like Dyson, the brands that we grew up with for decades, or some of them 50, 60, 70, 80 years. But there's no DTC vacuum company. What would you do if we were going to set up as partners right now to get that brand to launch and up to $1 million in sales?
Interesting. So this is like, what's that show Grant Cardone was on? Where you got undercover billionaire. So here's what I would do. I'm handed a card. Ty, you got to make a like $10 to $100 million vacuum cleaner company. First thing I would do is decide, do I want to make it by being an affiliate, meaning I don't have to start my own vacuum cleaning company? I just build myself as a vacuum cleaner expert, and then I post links on my website and on my Instagram to go buy my recommendations, and I get 30%. That's a valid way to make an instant business as an affiliate. If I change my name to Tai, the vacuum cleaner Lopez, and I was just posting interesting videos on my Instagram and TikTok and my Twitter, and I was just talking about, oh, did you know that this infrared vacuum cleaner destroys all the potential COVID, germs floating around, all this crazy shit. And I guarantee you the vacuum cleaner you have doesn't have this infrared. I partnered with infraredvacuumcleaners.com. Go there and enter my code name TI for 10% off. You can become a millionaire without even owning the brand. So that would be my first question is, do I want to have life on super easy mode but make a little less money? Do I want to move to Brazil, talk about vacuum cleaners an hour a day, make $100,000 a month in my pocket, which in Brazil is about $1 million a month of buying power?
Well, let's say you're actually Ty, the vacuum guy.
Yeah, Ty, the vacuum guy. I like that. Dan could be my chief marketing officer, chief branding officer. Now, the second, for those of you who are like, fuck that, $100,000 a month's not enough. I want $100 million empire. Then I got to build the product. But you know what I would do now? I would try to find an AI software angle. And what I'd probably do, just off the top of my head, I'd create an AI app or piece of hardware that you download the app and somehow you run it over your house, and it gives you it shows you how much bacteria is floating in your carpet. Because let's just say let's say I have a piece of hardware.
Isn't that like the Roomba that goes around your...
Yeah, like a Roomba.
And it technically maps your house, supposedly.
Yeah, but imagine if everyone I could show you with a simple app that your house is teeming with nasty viruses. Then I hit you with my special vacuum cleaner that uses what the app found to change modes in the vacuum cleaner. It's like, oh, when we hit your kitchen, we go on hit this. When we hit your toilet, where the dudes are missing and peeing on the floor, we hit this thing with hyper bleach mode, boom, boom, boom. And then when we go in the baby's room, we don't want to hit it with so much chemicals. And I'd make like a high-tech tool. I'd partner with some genius, and I'd come up with an AI software that people are paying $7 a month for. That gives me recurring revenue. It allows me to exit to a private equity guy. If I was really ambitious, I'm trying to get a piece of hardware. If you own hardware, software, that's your best chance of making 100 mil. Look at Apple. Their hardware, the iPhone's hardware, and then software, they own the App Store where they're making 25, 30% off every deal and transaction. So they're both, and they're a multi-trillion-dollar company.
So let's talk about the investing side. So you started making money a long time ago, 2005, 6, 2008, 2009, 10, etc. As you're accumulating wealth, were you always just putting it back into paid media, back into personal brand? Or were you finally saying, you know what, I'm going to invest into real estate. I'm going to invest into crypto. I'm going to invest in private equity. I'm going to angel invest into this startup. Talk us through, since you have so many options, how did you first start investing?
Yeah, my second mentor, Alan Nation, said, Ty, biggest mistake of entrepreneurs is reinvesting all their profits back into the same business. He said, inevitably, whatever you do stops working. So never put 100%. So I've followed that since I was 19. If I make money from a business, I might reinvest. I call it 60, 30, 10. 60% I might reinvest back into the business. It's logical. But I'm trying to put 30% and 10% in two other asset classes. So if I had my vacuum cleaner business right now and it was making me $1 million a year profit, I'd probably put 600,000 back into R&D, hiring, new marketing, and then I would take 30%. I think a good rule of thumb, if you love crypto, I think dollar cost average into your favorite cryptos without any emotion. Dollar cost average means you just go to Coinbase or crypto.com and you just subtract $1,000 a week from my Bank of America account into Bitcoin or ETH or Ripple or whatever you're interested in. So I'd probably do 10% in a dollar cost averaging into a technology, a crypto that I believe in. And then I 30% in real estate. I bought my first real estate in 2005 in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I think that'd be a good diversification. I also think for those of you really ambitious, you could buy businesses. Nothing can make you more money. The two things that make you the most money with the least capital is an AI tech company or buying existing assets, big companies, medium-sized companies, packing them together under one leadership, cutting the costs, and selling them to somebody else.
So someone at this live event walks up to you and they have their business plan and they're going to pitch you, and you've been pitched hundreds and hundreds of times every single year. What are the few things that stand out to you to make a decision where you want to pass this along to your investment advisor, accountant, or someone to actually move forward?
See, when somebody comes to me with a deal, I'm very rarely care about what the deal is. There's different philosophies. Mine is I invest in the person. If you gave me a choice, a random dude off the street walks up with the best business idea ever, or Mark Zuckerberg calls me and says, Ty, you want to put 100,000 and own 1% of my new startup? And I go, what is it? And he goes, haven't decided yet. I'd be like, 100 grand of Mark Zuckerberg. If the rando dude off the street is like, look, I've mapped it all out. Here's my 7,000 page business plan. It's exact. I'm like, I like what Napoleon Bonaparte says. He said, well, Mike Tyson said it simpler. Every man has a plan until I punch him in the face. Right? So if somebody tells me their business plan, what Napoleon said was he didn't like plans as much as people think. He said attack, and then we make the plan. So I'd rather, if somebody comes up with me with just an idea, I'm just like, tell me more about you. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? What's something crazy? If I can find somebody who has some kind of track record, even if they're young, of doing something extraordinary, I'm more likely. So it's never, you can pitch your idea, but I'm not judging the idea so much. I'm judging, because in general, I'm reading an interesting book called Pivot. It's like how to pivot from anything. In general, everybody that got well, there's not one person essentially you can think of who got wealthy whose wealth creator was their original idea. Almost everybody pivoted a little bit. Almost everybody pivoted a little bit. I mean, Elon Musk didn't start PayPal. Peter Thiel did. He had X, which was similar. Then he pivoted over here. If you look at, if you look at Zuckerberg, the original Facebook was like a dating app. He literally said, I couldn't get girls, so I want to make an app, the Facebook. And it was, remember Hot or Not? They used it to rank women. But then he's like, okay, if we do Hot or Not, then we're alienating women, so let's make it more open. So I'm looking for a person smart enough to know how to pivot all around and chase the money. And money is like it's like a treasure hunt, Give me the good treasure hunt person with no idea, and I'm in. Mark Zuckerberg, if you're listening, I'll put $100,000 into any idea that you have. It could be a, horse manure sandwich restaurant. Well, I could see that working if Mark Zuckerberg's behind it. He'll probably eventually pivot it into hamburgers, but yeah.
So there's 4 core things that I look for when someone pitches me. 1 is the person. 2, does anybody care? And people vote with their wallets. That's why I like investing in companies that already have at least $2 or $3 million in sales, because people voted with their wallets. They prove they care. 3 is, can this sell out in the wild when no one else is around? Can this product sell on a shelf or on a website when that CEO, that founder, that sales rep isn't there? Can it still sell? And 4th is, can they back it up? The things that they told me, oh, I'm already in all the Whole Foods. Are you really? And then I go get my accountant, my advisor, my lawyer, my CEO to rip it apart. I call that the Four Horsemen, to go actually find out, can they back up what they said? And so when people are approaching me, those are the 4 core things. Who is the person? Does anybody care? Can it sell by itself? And what they said, can they validate it? So Tai, why should people invest into themselves? Why should they be buying books? Why should they be buying courses? Why should they be joining masterminds? Talk about investing into themselves.
Yeah, I tell people, whatever money you make, at minimum, if you play small ball, you should invest 10% of it back into mentors. So if you make 10 million this year, it sounds crazy. You should spend $1 million on mentors, conferences, traveling there, bringing sharp people onto your advisory board. It's just a good ratio. Take 10% of your profits. That's nothing. I've done more. I've done 20% in a year. I had one time I had a CPA. I used to live across the street. He called me. He's like, Tai. He's like, I can't handle this anymore. He's like, you're spending like $250,000 a month on coaches, mentors, conferences. He's like, this is crazy. And I go, but I made the most money of my life this year. I'm like, so I think there's some kind of karmic thing where you stay humble and use ratios. The big mistake people make, is that my water, by the way? There's mine. I think there's something karmic about being humble. It's funny. I meet some of my former students and I kind of rip them a new one. I'm like, let me get this straight. You were broke. You bought my course for $1,000 and it made you a millionaire. And I was like, did you come back to me and buy my more advanced course? No. I'm like, well, that's why you plateaued for the last 5 years, dude. For me, Joel Salatin is still on my paid mentorship. I pay him. He's on my payroll still. That's from not my payroll as an employee, but as a consultant, he's on my advice. He's been my mentor since 19. You find a good mentor, never get rid of them. You find a good friend, they don't grow on trees, man. You find a good friend in high school, keep that mofo till you're in the old folks home together. What else are you gonna have? So I think the principles of reinvesting in yourself beyond just the need to do it is Use a percentile. It'll keep you logical. If you're making $1 billion, people go, oh my God, you would do 10%, 100 million? Well, it wouldn't be 100 million per se into a mentor, but it would be for, if you make $1 billion, first off, to make $1 billion, you're going to probably be dropping 50 million a year on lawyers. I count that as mentors, right? You make $1 billion, you're spending 50 million a year on deals you're doing, tax accountants, attorneys on closing deals, putting you offshore, asset protection, trusts, all that, fighting off weird people. So I think this 10% ratio holds whether you make 100 grand this year or $1 billion. Then I think you have to stay humble enough to not think you outgrew self-development. There's no outgrowing self-development. There's none. The great people of all of history, when you look at, Socrates, considered maybe the wisest person or smartest person, he said, as when he was old, it's like, the only thing I know is that I really know nothing. So it's not like he got older and smarter and said, well, shit, I figured out the whole world. I don't need to keep learning, Albert Einstein just said, my real advantage is I'm still curious, and I'm like 80 years old. I didn't get to the point where I'm like, I came up with E equals MC squared back in 1912 or whatever. He was still trying to figure out stuff in the 1940s and the 50s. So I think it's that there's something good karma about you keeping your brain humble. So pay somebody. It's kind of like a personal, I'll tell you this, my dad was a pro bodybuilder. He was on the cover of Joe Weider's Mr. Universe. Before Mr. Olympia was Mr. Universe, my dad was on the cover. And my dad never worked out alone. And I've gotten to know Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger always had a dude in the gym pushing himself. LeBron James spends $1 million per summer on bringing in the best people to stretch him out, to check his nutrition, his diet, to put him on anti-aging stuff. He's dropping $1 million. Is that a good investment? Of course. The dude's still Hall of Fame level play, and he's, 40 or almost 40. So if you look at the greats, if you look at Ronaldo, Michael Jordan said, my secret was my coaches. He had Dean Smith, and then he had
Tim Grover.
Yeah, Dean Smith, Grover. The average, Chris Paul's a friend of mine, he's on his way to the Hall of Fame. I remember being at his house and I'm like counting how many specialists. He has like 11. They have like a stretching dude. They have like a vitamin guy. They have 2 or 3 different weight. These guys do crazy weight shit, this weird stuff you've never seen. They've got people stretching, doing like, deep tissue massage. So the pattern is the higher you go up the chain, the more they're bringing in expertise into their life. And the poorer my friends are, the more they're doing it alone. Wealth requires allies, my friend. Wealth requires allies.
So what about investing into their personal brand? A lot of people are building it up on social media. They're going out there, they're trying to do podcasts, they're trying to get on the news, they're trying to post on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and LinkedIn, et cetera. But what about actually spending money to build their personal brands?
Yeah, I put out a video in like 2017. I said, maybe it was 2019. I said, I spent 50 million on my personal brand and it's big now, but it took money. And then I saw Alex Hormozy did a video like last year and he's like, I spent 50 million on my personal brand. And I was like, I know that number. So can you build a personal brand without spending 50 million? Yes. Does money increase the odds it happens and shorten the time frame? Yes. Whatever you do, simple rule, anything important in life is where you should direct your money. If you have kids, make sure you spend it on your kids. If you think a personal brand is important to what you do, don't do it free. Save free for the stuff that's not so valuable. What is something that's not so valuable that I would do for free? What do I do that I don't spend money on that I think is important? My farm, maybe? No, that's expensive. What am I talking about? Farm's expensive. Yeah, maybe there's nothing. You know, the Greeks used to say, money makes the man. And it's kind of a weird, controversial thing to say because there's a part of me that doesn't want to think that a man's worth comes from money. But man, I'm gonna let you in on a dark secret. I think, wasn't it Chris Rock or Kevin Hart or something who said, only pets, women, and children are loved unconditionally. Man, what's the number one? You know, Dr. David Buss did a scientific study. If a man loses all his money, what's the most probable thing that will happen to him next? Divorce. Doesn't mean women are gold diggers. It just means women are built to be like, you can't provide anymore? I got defined. So men especially use money very strategically. I'll leave you with this on that subject. I did a tweet that went pretty viral yesterday. I said, poor parents teach their children to think about the cost, right? Rich parents teach their children to think about what's the return on investment. I remember growing up, my stepdad, my mom was below the poverty line, I'm sure. She made probably $8,000 a year till I was 8 years old. And then my mom said, I'm getting married to this guy, John. We're moving up in the world. And I remember what she said. She said, he works at the post office and he makes $28,000 a year. It's like, boom, we made money. So, but he was a guy that also grew up poor. So we'd go to the movies. He would drive to a grocery store. We'd have to leave an hour early to go buy candy because he's like, movie theaters, you buy red vines at the movie theaters like $6. And we'd go to like the grocery store and it's like, it's $3. And I'm like, but now in hindsight, for 1 hour of my time, I ain't driving somewhere to save $3, but he was in that poverty mindset, right? So when people come to building their personal brand, a lot of people go, I'm not going to put money. I'm going to see what I can do with my personal brand for free because you were taught by your parents that putting money into things is bad. But in general, you want to be, how do I if it works, stuff more and more money into it, man, more. I remember on YouTube, I'd spend $500,000 a month just boosting podcast clips that didn't even have a way for people to pay. You'll make that money back. Eyeballs, attention is money, man. Attention's the new gold.
So on the charity side of things, why do you think it's important for brands to have some type of philanthropy attached, whether it's forward-facing for the customers or internally for their staff, clients, vendors, et cetera?
Well, hopefully you give to charity out of a good heart, like not for the recognition. But corporations and billionaires give money to charity for tax deductions. That's a big part of it, right? So I would encourage everybody, don't give money for show. Don't give money just because there's a tax deduction. I think, once again, I think what goes around comes around. If you don't give to charity, it's often out of a scarcity mindset and it holds you back. Now, some people will disagree with this. Elon Musk says he won't give to charity at all because he thinks most money that goes to charity is wasted. That's kind of his thing. And he says everything I'm doing in life will, his SpaceX company. I kind of see what he's saying, but I think that there's people in genuine need that you should try. I mean, if somebody just loses their home and there's a hurricane and there's a fire and and you go, well, I'm doing something else for the better of mankind over the next 100 years. They're like, yeah, but how do I eat right now? So I still think you should give to charity. I respect Elon Musk, but I don't agree with that at all. I think rich people, if you're given stuff, you should have some kind of moral obligation to help other people. I just think it's kind of the trade. I remember once I kind of made a deal with God and I said, if you help me make money one day, I'll help other people. And like, I think there's a certain karmic, what goes around comes around kind of thing. So I've been lucky. A lot of wealth is luck, but I think you can increase your luck by doing things like that. So I think giving to charity makes you luckier. You know what's interesting on this? Here's a crazy game. You go back in history, track when wealthy people gave the biggest publicly documented charitable donations. The big one was Bill Gates. I remember Bill Gates. Now, my mom, by the way, thinks Bill Gates is the Antichrist. You can't, if my mom was here, I wouldn't be able to have this talk. She would be in the back being like, don't say any, never mention that name. It's evil. But my mom, yeah, she likes the theory that Bill Gates is trying to destroy all humans. Who here agrees with that? My mom. I told you, my mom would have an audience here. But anyway, I remember watching, I don't remember, it was 5 or 10 years ago when he did, or maybe a little longer, he gave a massive amount of his wealth to the charity, Bill Gates charity. And I remember thinking, all right, I'm going to see if this charity thing actually works. Lots of religions have charity. Christianity has it. It's one of the pillars. Any Muslims in here? It's like one of the big pillars of Islam that you give to charity, Judaism, all kinds of religions, right? So I go, let me put this to the test. And I remember it took his net worth way down. He owns 65% of Microsoft. So let's say back then he was worth $100 billion and he gave most of it his way. I remember his net worth dropping down. He's off the top of the Forbes list, goes way down. Then lo and behold, this fucking guy came back. After giving away 80%, he came back to like number one a couple times. Number one or number two. So I've seen it. There's something weird. Stingy people seem to lose somehow. And women don't like it a lot. Women really, if you're a woman here and one of your top criteria on your Hinge profile is like, give me a stingy dude. Raise your hand. Who considers stingy an ick as a woman? Like if you go on a date with a guy and the waiter's working really hard and then at the end you just see he's like, I ain't leaving a tip. Let's go. Like women, so men, even if you don't care anything about spiritual stuff, you don't care anything about karma, you better be generous on that first date. I know a dude, do you know what he does to get a second date? He's like, Tai, I always get a second date, man. I said, what's your secret? And this is a dude, he's kind of rich. He probably has $5 million net worth, but like in cash. So he said, I go on a date with the girl. I excuse myself before, he said, when we're going to the restaurant, I go to an ATM, okay? And I don't show her anything. I'm like, okay, wait back there. And I go, I want to have some cash, And so he gets and he takes the receipt. And he says, one of my accounts shows like 1.8 million in cash. So I put it in my pocket. We go to the dinner. He says, about halfway through the dinner, I excuse myself and I go, oh, can you watch my stuff? And I just take everything in my pocket. I'm going to go to the bathroom. And he puts his wallet with the receipt face up, the ATM receipt. He said he goes to that bathroom. He waits. He said he always tries to sit next to a woman. So, because most women aren't overtly gonna grab the receipt, but he puts it so it's impossible for her to not be like, what? He said they always come back for a second date when they see 1.8 million in there. So
So there's only one question that's my repeat question across every single episode, and out of 200 times asking, I've never gotten the same answer once. Okay. Tai Lopez, you're gonna accumulate billions of dollars. You're not gonna be a multi-hundred millionaire. You're going to be a billionaire without question. But you are going to have multiple children. At the end of the day, when you finally pass away, what percentage of those billions of dollars do you leave to those children?
I like that you're a fan and say I'm going to have many billions. One of my warmest moments is when my son said, Papa, when you're a billionaire, when you're a multi-billionaire, I was like, great. It's great when your kids are your fans. So what? So what was the final part
what percentage?
Will I give my children? Man, I don't think you should give anything, but I think inheritances ruin kids. What I would do is what Donald Trump's dad did, which was they were showing effort and they had a business, I'd be a favorable investor. But if they were lazy and they didn't get out of there, I'm like, I ain't giving you shit. I like what Shaq says. He says sometimes he's flying on his jet, his kids act out. He turns to him, he said, I'm rich, you're poor. I actually say that to my son. He's 6. He starts to see that I have stuff, and I go, just to be clear, one time I have an assistant that travels with me, a maid, and he started giving her orders at 6, and I was like, I like, you're poor. I have, and I said, he knows about money. He has like $200 he's earned from my mom, his grandma. And I said, she's like $10,000 a month. You can pay her and then you can give her orders. So you better shut that down in your kids real young, because you'll take all the fire out of them. Take all the fire out of them. If a kid knows he stands to inherit anything, now, I think you should provide if your kid has an emergency or something like that. But I don't think you should give a penny. But you should be a favorable investor. I think that's a happy median. So your son, your daughter builds a business, it starts making $500,000, they build it on their own. I'm okay with making intros. Hey, here's some investors. Don't play favorites with my kid, but if they got a good idea, and I know they'll a little bit play favorites. I think it's okay to nudge your kids towards success, but don't tell them they got money coming. I think that would just ruin everybody. If I knew I had 3 million coming, or 1 million, or 10 million, you think I'd go through all I've been through as an entrepreneur? Who here has been through hell as an entrepreneur? You think you would have gone through that hell if you knew you could just chill, and at 25 you'd get a trust that would pay you 20 grand a month for the rest of your life? Fuck that. I think it's a big. Who have you ever met that inherited big chunk of money that did well in life?
Zero.
Yeah, but how many kids are in rehab? How many kids are on drugs? How many kids are complete fuck-ups? So I think like Rockefeller, I just read Rockefeller wrote 38 letters to his son. And it's interesting because John D. Rockefeller's son, Jr., carried on the legacy and the Vanderbilts and some of those big families. But if you read the stories in those families, there's so much dysfunction. You can't even, and there's people kill each other. There's kids that don't talk to each other again. There's whole family feuds. So I would just say to your kids, nobody gets anything. But if you build something, I'm Shark Tank. Come pitch me. But if I put money in, I own 1% of the company. If I lend you money, you don't pay me back, I take the company. You just deal with them like that. I don't see anything wrong with that. And I think it would be weird to be wealthy and not help your kids at all. I think that'd be weird. So I'm looking at Buddha was right, the middle way. Don't give them anything, but giving them zero help is weird too.
So where can people find you on social media? We know that part, but are there things that are going on? Is there books out there? Is there courses out there? Are there things that people can look into more?
Yeah, I've got my new AI SMMA program out. So I launched SMMA movement in 2016. I got the new version, how to use AI to make money. And I just had a guy 10 minutes ago who went in my first SMMA, made his first 20 grand in 3 days, and now made 20 million. So if you go to AISMMA.com, or you can just go to my website, tailopez.com. For those of you who want to keep developing yourself, go to tailopez.com/books. It's a free list. Nobody paid me to have their book on there. It's my unbiased opinion on the 100 best books you should read in order. So if you don't have time to read 100, read the first 10 on the list. So that's totally, I think actually disclosure, I think I still have some Amazon links. No joke, if you buy a book from my link, I make about a penny. So I'm making big bucks.
So we all grew up thinking it's rude to talk about money. I think that's ridiculous. We have to have discussions about money with our friends, family, and followers. You have to be able to talk about loans, accounting, taxes. Should I borrow this money? What happens if my friend borrows $500? How do I get it back? What happens if I need to lease a car or buy a car? These are real life things that go on in your daily life. So you have to have discussions with your friends, family, and followers about money. And we try to change the entire narrative that it's rude to talk about money, or that money is the root of all evil. Neither of those things are true. It is useful for your daily life. It's useful for the people around you. Is there any final thoughts, Ty?
I think I read an article said Jesus Christ, the subject he talked about the most, had something about money in it. So don't be afraid to talk about money. If Jesus talked about it and he was considered a spiritual teacher, you ain't Jesus. You don't have a better standard than him. So talk about money, because if you don't talk about it, you end up cursing your kids. I don't think you should elevate money to God-like status. I think you should be real. I just had one of my students die. I don't know how he died, but one of my most successful students died. I don't know what happened, but he had at least 500 million in crypto. And so it reminded me, my brother just sent me the obituary, like, yo, look who died, man. This is a guy, I have a $1 million partner program. He was in my $1 million partner program. I took him from rags to riches. He probably was a billionaire. And so I would say the middle way, if you idolize money too much, you'll see some mofo, once you die, everybody's the same. Or if you're near death. On the flip side, if you minimize money so much, you just curse your children to always be grinding and barely getting ahead. So put money on the proper pedestal, which is relatively high in importance to teach yourself. I would put it on a 1 to 100. Most important thing in life is to leave some kind of legacy through your children on this earth, right? That's like number one. So that's 100 out of 100. I'd say, 90 out of 100 would be, how do you find true friends, family, romance, like true social bonds, people who would die for you. That's the second most important thing in life. How do you find people who would die for you, who would never betray you? If somebody offered them $1 billion, they'd be like, nah, man, this is my friend. I'd die for my friend. And it could be a family member. That's second. Then third is probably making money. These are the order of life. So don't make it an idol, but it's pretty high up there.
All right, guys. So if you're listening, please like, comment, subscribe. It's your efforts that help us stay in the top 50 on all the podcasts in the world. And if you can, share it with your friends, share it with people around you, and have these blunt discussions with people, whether it's your children, your staff, your parents. You have to be able to have discussions. It's part of our lives, and we need to break this curse that's in our mind that we can't talk about it bluntly. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys next Monday on themoneymondays.com.